Good morning, friends. Welcome to our greenhouse. As you could tell by the title of the video, we have something very important that we need to talk about today. And it obviously relates to what we are doing right here and what I believe you need to start doing right now. Let's talk about it. Friends, remember, when I'm talking about topics like this, I'm not talking about fearfulness. I'm talking about being informed so you know what's going on and so you can prepare for you and your family appropriately. Use this information how you want to use it. For my family, we are dedicating more of our property to growing food. Now I'm going to ask you what you think. Do you think world governments are warring against their own people in terms of food production? In my personal opinion, I think they are. And I'm going to run through a bunch of stories today, and this is just a tiny tip of the iceberg on what you can find out there relating to what I can only deem as the government's war on food. Let's start off this by talking about the panic being instigated by the CDC about bird flu. Now, you've probably heard recent stories out there about culling of some big farms full of chickens because of potential bird flu. But that's not specifically what I'm talking about this morning. I'm talking about their panic that they're inciting about backyard chicken flocks. They're pushing this ridiculous notion that your chickens in your backyard could have bird flu, and that even if you have like 3 chickens, you need to get them tested for it. And in fact, in the state of Maryland and Wisconsin, if you have even 1 backyard chicken, you have to register your land, your property with the state to tell them that you have these chickens. That's no longer freedom, friends. So these 3-letter organizations are instigating panic. And what does panic lead to? It leads to control. They're also saying that bird flu has now jumped to cows, and that's all over the news. This is getting a little ridiculous. But here's another one from the CDC that's even more insidious is too strong of a word, but it's about salmonella in backyard flocks. Do you want to handle your own backyard chicken, poultry, pets with a pair of gloves and a mask because of fear of potential salmonella? The CDC has a study on their website specifically about backyard flocks and salmonella. But guess what? You can comb that whole website and not find, and I did this, and a few other people have done this, you won't find these studies about how much salmonella runs through commercial chicken farms and then even makes it in that chicken to restaurants. Additionally, we're sending our chickens overseas to be processed and shipped back to us. That introduces a whole nother level of potential contamination for any meat. Like I said, I'm going to keep digging through these top stories for you so you can be informed about what's going on around our country and potentially other places in the world. But you can keep digging and you will find many, many more. Have you heard of Amos Miller? He is an Amish farmer who is being persecuted for selling food to his local community. I'm going to read a direct quote from his lawyer who recently had a court conference, and it goes like this. The Pennsylvania Agriculture Department claims that all food is illegal as drugs, unless it was made by a government-approved facility. And they can destroy your food at will if they wish to. Again, that is not freedom, friends. And the media, as you and I know, just spins this stuff in ridiculous directions. Check out this terrible article, this garbage article from the Telegraph in the UK, picking up on this study by the University of Michigan. And I'll read the title here for you. Carbon footprint of homegrown food 5 times greater than those grown conventionally. That is the most ridiculous, bald-faced lie that I have ever heard in my life. But they're using it to create panic and to take control. And it has to stop with you and me. The amount of carbon that I use to maintain my garden and orchards is darn near 0. And I guarantee you the sequestration of carbon on my property is 10 times more than some commercial farm. And regarding carbon, My friend Whitmar McConnell, who has been a small farmer for 35 years and also is a soils scientist who did the testing on my soil. He has told me numerous times that, Eric, if they start to get rid of all the carbon in the atmosphere and sequester as much of it as they are saying that they want to, all life on this planet will die. We need the carbon. The plants need the carbon. Life needs carbon. Friends, most of those government regulations that you are seeing come to a head all over the world are in developed countries, not necessarily developing countries. You have seen riots and protests by farmers in France and the Netherlands. You've seen those farmers, spreading manure in front of government buildings, which is pretty great. And friends, there's a headline out of Ireland right now that the government wants to and probably will cull 10% of the healthy cattle herd. That's in the entire country. It doesn't matter if you're a small farmer, large farmer, whatever, because they say that cow farts are contributing to global warming, which is ridiculous and completely debunked, and it just not in the realm of intelligent thinking. Now, I'll give one caveat to that, is that cutting down forests to accommodate cattle grazing land is ridiculous. And it is especially egregious in places like Brazil, because at the same time, if we cut down all the trees, then we're not going to be able to breathe. Everything has to be in balance. Here's another one, friends, on the World Economic Forum website. I know that's a favorite of all of us, but it's out there. You can just go look it up, and it's right there. They have a laid out plan in place to reinvent food production and renovate food production. And the main picture right on the article or paper that they have is the picture of a fake meat processing plant. And friends, it goes on and on and on. And here's the next one. Do you know what is happening in Idaho right now? Are you prepared to pay a lot more for potatoes coming up here pretty soon? That is, of course, if you don't grow them yourself. During one of the most water plentiful times in recent history in the state of Idaho, they are curtailing water being pumped to 500,000 acres of farmland. And most of these farms are small family farms that have still been around for generations. Withholding water to those small farms will completely devastate pretty much all of them. They are not allowed to use any of the water because they say the aquifer is not full, but there's record snow, there's record flow in the canals, in the rivers. There is a lot of water to be able to be used by everybody. It's just a really poor management system by the government. It's also the big guys who get the water first, right? The ones who have connections. And yes, they have signed water rights over the years. I understand all of that. And the big guys got in first, and they've got the allotment for them that gets to them first before all the small guys. And there has to be some sort of management if there is a drought. I get all that, but go read the articles about how these small farmers are getting completely screwed over. In my opinion, it's cronyism and some nepotism, and it happens in red states too. Here's one of the most annoying aspects about the story, is that these farmers were told they had to shut off the water mid-growing season. So the crops are already up, but they're not ready to be harvested yet, and they have to shut off the water now. So that's a complete waste of all the crops that are in the ground right now, which means they spent the money already on the seed to put in, the seed potatoes to put in the ground, and now they're told that they can't water it at all. That's also ridiculously poor management. You could have told them way ahead of time, before they put the crops in the ground, before they purchased the crops, that you were going to shut the water off to them. Shame on you, Idaho government. Now, there's a lot more behind this story, and there's some legal things that you can go check out if you want. I just touched on the highlights there, but it is another example of what's going on and what can happen in an instant. 500,000 acres of mostly potatoes, gone. The next one is not one headline, but it's multiple headlines. You see recalls for food all the time, especially prepackaged food. You know, if you've got listeria in it, or you've got some other, maybe it's salmonella, whatever it is. But food is getting recalled all the time. E. coli is on fresh fruits and vegetables. There's been several recalls due to that. And that is because the irrigation water that they're spraying on these fields, it's liquid manure in all of these big commercial farms, basically. Where are they getting the manure from? How safe is it? Whatever. But food is being recalled that way. Now, that isn't a government intrusion. That's just terrible farming practices. So that is another reason why you need to grow your own food. And the last one I'm going to mention today is a Fed buyback program, a buyback program for farms that have been contaminated. And they are forcibly buying back these farms. So if you didn't know, there's something called PFAS chemicals that have gotten into pretty much every corner of the planet. And a lot of them are in the water everywhere. So farmers who have been watering their farms, even if their soil is fine, they've been watering their farms with contaminated water, then they say that the PFAS levels are too high and that they must forcibly take the farm to either rehabilitate it or give them market value for the farm and completely take it. So government taking farms. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar in history? But then you've got places like in Ohio with that train derailment and the burning off of those chemicals. Are they going to buy back those farms? Or are those people completely out of luck and money and their life savings, their property, their animals, everything? And if you don't believe me, go check out Senate Bill 747. That is the bill, and you can read through it yourself if you want to. That's the bill that does this to farmers. And it does it under the auspices of protecting everybody. But check this out. Over the last 5 years, the FDA has been continuously studying raw food for PFAS chemicals in the United States from everywhere. And guess what they found? 3% of the raw food that they found was contaminated with PFAS. 97% is still good. So why would the government institute programs to go forcibly take, not this, they actually are forcibly taking farms from people. It's happening up in Maine and mostly in the Northeast. Keep in mind though, within that 3% that they found, most of that was in seafood. So this is raw food we're talking about. It was in the seafood, the shellfish and the fish that they've caught in either freshwater or farmed or out in the ocean. They're contaminated with PFAS because a lot of chemicals get dumped in the ocean. It is not the green pepper from the store. It is not the green pepper or the zucchini or the eggplant from small farmers. It is not from that. Unless you're one of the very small percentage of farmers who live near a contaminated water source. So as I always do, I want to touch on something for my Christian friends. We know in Revelation 18:3 and 18:9 through 15, that the merchants of the earth will mourn because they have aligned themselves with Babylon. And those merchants of the earth most assuredly incorporate all the big food corporations that are out there that most people get their food from. So if they're mourning and weeping, then we've got a problem. And where did God put us first? In a garden. And he told us to tend to that garden. And even after sin came into the world, what were we doing? We were tilling the field. And what will be one of the things that we are doing in heaven? That is cultivating crops. We also know in Revelation 13, 16 and 17 that no man will be able to buy or sell lest he has the mark of the beast. Friends, what do we buy and sell the most of? Food. What do we need the most of? Food and water, right? So if we're not able to buy and sell, that's a serious problem. God is giving you the opportunity right now, and pray to him if you need financial means. He's giving you the opportunity right now to move to a country property. Friends, move to that country property and start growing food for you and your family. Friends, if you need help, encouragement, or information on how to do that, we are here to help. We've got over 600 videos on homesteading. We cover a broad range of topics about how to do so many different things. And wherever you are at, you can start now building your knowledge, even if it's just in some pots on your front porch. But start growing now. Now go check out this playlist, which is all of our videos on gardening, from building it to planting. Have a beautiful, blessed day. We'll see you next time.